Greetings and salutations. In our fifth video on how we trust God, we'll be looking at what we often talk about as the cosmological and teleological arguments for the existence of God. We'll be looking at how the intuitions and observations that are involved in these arguments can help us get to know God and trust Him. But before I go on, I should note that most of this video and the next one will contain material that is from a book by Dr. David Beck, who is one of my professors in undergrad. This book is a really neat introduction to arguments for and against the existence of God. It presents a historical overview, and it includes arguments for the existence of something supernatural from the perspective of non-Christian faiths, which I think bolsters the overall strength of the argument against naturalism in particular. But before getting into the meat of material drawn from this book, I would like to show you a quick video.
Hey, so thank you for watching. This took me
So that's oddly satisfying, right? That video just so happens to have over 100 million views on YouTube, which I think is kind of incredible that you can get that many people to watch dominoes fall down. But the point is, why did the last domino fall down? How do we answer that question? Well, you would probably say, because the one before it hit it. But then why did that one fall? Why did the second to last domino fall? Well, because the one before it fell. And what about that one? Well, the one before it and the one before it. You see how this goes. You can't really explain why the last domino fell unless you explain why all the dominoes fell. And to do that, you have to explain why the first domino fell. But even that isn't good enough. Why were there any dominoes there at all? You can't answer that question by saying dominoes. By themselves, dominoes can't explain their own presence on that particular floor. In the same way, you can't explain why the first domino fell by saying that another domino hit it. Not only would that not really explain anything, you just have a new first domino to deal with. These are the basic ideas behind what we call the cosmological argument. The idea is that we live in a domino world, and a domino world can't explain itself. A domino world can't answer questions like, why did the first domino tip? Or, why are there any dominoes at all? In other words, we live in a world, and part of that world is a chain of causes and effects. And we can't explain how that chain got started without appealing to something outside that chain. In the same way, why do the things that participate in that chain of cause and effects, the world we touch, feel, see, why do those things exist at all? Just like those dominoes, our world can't explain its own presence. So the cosmological argument is just a big word for the fact that, like the domino spiral, our world, the world we touch, taste, and hear around us, doesn't explain itself. So there must be something outside of that world. The cosmological argument also says that whatever it is that is outside of our world and explains our world must be extremely powerful. Now, that doesn't mean there's a really big, heavy domino sitting somewhere outside the universe. A bigger version of things we already see in our universe wouldn't explain anything. The idea is that whatever explains the world, and we've assumed that that's the God of the Bible, must possess a radically different kind of power than anything we've ever seen or can imagine. The power to bring something out of nothing and to arbitrate reality. The biblical picture here is that God is so powerful that reality conforms to his very words. The cosmological argument takes God's world and observations about God's world and tells us that God is powerful beyond our understanding or imagination. The teleological argument is very similar, but it has a bit more of a wow factor. The cosmological argument talks about the sheer fact that things exist and happen. That's why David Beck says that the cosmological argument codifies the most basic form of puzzling about God and how the very existence of our world is to be explained. But the teleological argument talks about the fact that what exists doesn't just exist, but is also so incredibly beautiful, intricate, and functional. As Beck says, why does our world make sense, fit together, seem so suited to our needs and wants? Indeed, why can we do science at all? Science relies on our ability to make predictions about the future based on what happened in the past. Why does that work? Why is the world consistent? The cosmological argument says that our world needs an explanation, and a powerful one. The teleological argument says that one of the things about our world that needs to be explained is that it makes sense. The dominoes in that video didn't fall randomly. They fell in order. They made a design. Somehow, the toppling went from the orange and yellow dominoes to the blue ones without knocking over the stacked dominoes that separated them. This is evidence that there was some design to how those dominoes were placed, that an intelligent person, in this case Lily Havesh, arranged them. Even if we hadn't seen Lily Havesh setting up the dominoes at the beginning of the video, we would still have known that someone did set them up, just from watching them, just from seeing them and watching how they fell. Now, of course, our world is much more intricate and complicated than that spiral of dominoes. If God made our world, God must be really, really smart and wise to arrange all of those pieces in a way that they fit together, work well, and sustain life. So together, the cosmological and teleological arguments show us that God's world is evidence of God's capability, his power, knowledge, and wisdom. This can help us trust him. How do we trust God? We trust God by recognizing his capability as displayed in the world he made, the world we see around us every day.